Same bleep, different day. The Panthers' sloppy play continued in Montreal as they were embarrassed at the Bell Center, and their toughest stretch of the season.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, April 3rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So Florida Panthers were on a second end of a back-to-back in Montreal, coming into this game already without Carter Verhaeghe, who is week to week. The Panthers did say that there is a chance that he could return right before the postseason, and Matthew Tkachuk missing this one due to an illness, a chance that he does play in Ottawa. But with the Panthers, they get off to a lead, and then the wheels fall off for them, which with a lot of sloppy play, not moving their feet in their own zone, losing battles, and really the Montreal Canadiens really taking it to them really in the second period was the difference in this one, where they end up winning this one by a final score of 5-3 at the Bell Center. But it is a Wednesday, which means it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Jacob Winans is back, and Jacob, welcome back, but in a not so in a post-game show where it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as Maroon 5 likes to say in the song "She Will Be Loved." And something for the people, the listeners, is I want to share something. Is when you logged on to the stream, there's a good 10-15 seconds of silence between you and I, and that spoke volumes, my friend, about this performance for the Panthers and just the stretch. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's honestly, this is probably nothing, not at all directed at you or what we do here, but I think as far as our recordings this year, this is probably the one I'm looking forward to the least, given what we've been watching. And there's a lot of questions. There's not a whole lot of answers, and we're all fans of the team. So you want to get on and have positive things to say, encouraging things to say. And no one enjoys having to talk negatively about the team they support, but that's really what we're going to be here to do, because there's not much positive to say about this one, and just the stretch they've had in general. It's been some pretty miserable hockey, and it's across the board. They're quite frankly, they're doing nothing right. Everything they're doing right now is wrong. And the Florida Panthers of a month and a half ago would win a 7-game series against this version of the Florida Panthers in 3. There wouldn't even be a need for a 4th game. It's pretty bad right now.
That's why this title of the show is called "Who Are You and What Have You Done to the Panthers?" And can't name that, can't think of a better title when it comes to what has been going on. And you think of this one where the shot attempts were 18-18 at 5-on-5. No one really took over the game. I mean, when you think about the 2 goals that scored in the first period, I mean, it's because they got to the net front. I mean, Anton Lundell getting it to backhand on Sam Montembeault, and then an incredible pass from Vladimir Tarasenko to Alexander Barkov after Barkov battled it to get it back down deep and everyone losing him. But then, going into that intermission, I was thinking, man, Ekblad is really stepping up with the physicality, not taking anything from anyone. I mean, we saw it on Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings with Alex DeBrincat, and then on Tuesday night against the Montreal Canadiens with Juraj Slofkovsky, but then final 40 minutes for the Panthers without Aaron Ekblad, and then the Montreal Canadiens losing, getting on the score sheet just 5 minutes after. And it's crazy. Even a goal that was originally ruled a goal, but then not ruled a goal, the refs kind of pulled a Steve Harvey when it came to that Brendan Gallagher attempt right out in front. It kind of reminded me of that game in Anaheim where Jacob Silverberg had a wraparound on Stolarz and couldn't tell, but except the one back in November I thought that was a goal, but this one you couldn't tell. But really, when it comes to the Panthers, it's just they're standing still in their own zone, not boxing out guys. Dmitry Kulikov, 2 bad turnovers in Montreal, had another one right to Nick Suzuki. And think about that play, Jacob. Vladimir Tarasenko battled so hard on that back check to get the puck back. Everything was gone right until that pass to Nick Suzuki right before he tied the game at 2 with in the 5:58 mark. It's just really about it's not like I said, it's not a lack of effort. It's just attention to detail when it comes to that.
Yeah, and it's so weird to see because it's been the Panthers' hallmark the entire season has been solid defense, smart decision making, keeping things simple. And just all of a sudden, they've completely abandoned it. And like, yes, there's guys out. There's guys not playing at 100%. But in those situations, that's when you want to play even more simple. When Aaron Ekblad's out, that's the time when you absolutely want to make the easy play, chip it off the glass. Why throw it in front of your net? And Dmitry Kulikov, I think the whole defense has struggled, but Dmitry Kulikov has stood out above everyone right now with just miserable decision making the past few games, and he's had a relatively solid season. There were a couple times early in the year, some bad decisions, some bad penalties. You can live with that from your third pair defenseman. And in his defense, he was playing a bigger role in the early part of the season than he has been lately, with Montour and Ekblad out. But now, I mean, going into the playoffs, your third pair has to be reliable. You don't need them to make plays. You don't need them to score goals. You don't necessarily even need them to put up points. And Oliver Ekman-Larsson does, but that's not necessarily what you're expecting from them. You just want smart plays. You want a shutdown pair that can get the puck out of your own zone. That's it. That's all you're asking for from your third pair. And Dmitry Kulikov has the past few games, he's completely lost any hockey sense. and quite frankly, I don't understand what he's doing. On that play, the Panthers have the momentum. You're reeling with an injury issue. The Panthers had killed off a power play to end the first period, 5-on-3, big kill, chance to turn the momentum. They got a couple of good scoring chances. Sam Montembeault stops them. Just be smart. You're in the lead. Don't do anything to give momentum back when you know that you've gotten out of a tough jam and you also have a really big injury on the back end. Then to throw a pass right to Nick Suzuki, the best player on that team, right in front of your goalie, it's terrible, and it turns the momentum entirely. Not to single out one play, because everything in the entire game was pretty miserable after the first period, but that was a bad one. And Aaron Ekblad, I appreciate the physicality. I really do. I like that you have a guy paired with Forsling who's playing that shutdown role, who has some physicality. It was great against Alex DeBrincat. Alex DeBrincat is also 5'7", and also weighs under 200 pounds by a considerable amount.
Slofkovsky is a tank.
Exactly. You cannot do the same thing against a guy who's 6'5", 230, 240 pounds. When you know how important you are to your team, you know that you've had some injuries recently, and have a long history of injuries, and you know the playoffs are in less than 2 weeks. You have to be smarter if you're Aaron Ekblad in that situation, and he paid the price for it, and now the team is going to pay the price for it, because post-game we didn't get an update on Ekblad, and typically when you don't get a Paul Maurice day-to-day post-game, you're looking at something a little bit longer term. Last time Ekblad gets hurt, we didn't get an update post-game. He missed 7 games. Panthers have 6 games left. It's it doesn't look great right now for Aaron Ekblad, and the decision making there, it's got to be better. You have to know how important you are to your team, and you can't get involved in something like that.
Yeah, and two of the Habs goals on the night, two of them were unassisted, where Tarasenko mishandles the puck, Montour gets on a pinch, and then Jake Evans goes on a shorthanded breakaway, and then also with the Panthers just losing it in the neutral zone. I mean, and then Caufield gets around Montour, and then you're questioning whether Sam Reinhart should go to the check or stay where he's at, and then Stolarz late to the post on that one. But this is one that you can't put on Anthony Stolarz on the night. Just everyone around him just didn't give him the help that they needed on the offense. Even though Barkov and Reinhart, they got to the net front quite a bit, but everything outside of that, it's just overall just not a great night for the Panthers as far as just missed assignments consistently for them. And it's more than just this game. It's a theme now, unfortunately, in the last 10, as they are now 2-7-1 in their last 10, and now have fallen 4 points behind the Boston Bruins with the same amount of games, and 4 points ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the Leafs having 2 games in hand. So not looking good for the Panthers right now, and still a lot of work to do right before they clinch their attempts to clinch home ice in round 1. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more about our 3 stars of the game and when we thought this game was lost. What we are going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and view from your seats and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And you could save up to 60% buying last-minute tickets for sports, concert, comedy, theater, etc. Save even more on exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of games or events. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprises and fees at checkout. Get the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Back on this Wednesday, April 3rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday edition of the show, where the Florida Panthers lose to the Montreal Canadiens by a final score of 5-3. Panthers get a goal in the last 2 minutes thanks to Sam Bennett. Two goals in the last 2 games for Bennett, both of them unfortunately coming in garbage time. And when 3 stars of the game, I'm going to go quickly on this one. Nick Suzuki, Sam Montembeault, Cole Caufield are mine. It's that first line found a way to just dominate and create multiple opportunities. Honorable mention, obviously, Slofkovsky, part of that top line too, as far as that. But just that line just made the Panthers pay in so many different ways. I mean, we didn't even mention the second goal that Suzuki scored on the power play, where I believe that penalty that Caufield drew was a little bit of an embellishment there. It was a little easy to take him down there, but still, the Nick Suzuki made him pay on that one. So so Nick Suzuki is definitely my first star on the night. Montembeault made incredible saves as the Panthers. They got to the net front quite a bit, but it was just really all about how they protected their end of things and in the neutral zone too, and all. But Jacob, your 3 stars, my friend.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one. You can't really. It's almost like we kind of gave them the game. So for me, 3 stars are going to be Sam Montembeault, Mike Matheson. I thought he was pretty solid and used his legs really well. And then the entire Montreal Canadiens first line. It's pretty cut and dry. They dominated the game, took it to the Panthers the entire time, got the saves in net, and then Matheson was really good, quick outs, used his speed, smart decision making. It's good to see him playing good hockey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just even though it didn't 2 Panthers that it didn't necessarily work out here. I know the Montreal Canadiens, record wise, they're not at their best, but you see little things from former Panthers as far as like developing their game, and definitely 2 guys that I know that I root for. I know I can't speak for everyone there, but I mean, crazy because you think about where the how momentum has swung too, and in different ways and different moments where you thought even when there was like a little bit of a lead change. I mean, the after the Montreal Canadiens took the lead to make it 3-2, I mean, Anthony Stolarz makes a stop on a shorthanded chance, and even after the Panthers score to make it 2-1, the Montreal Canadiens go for a little bit of a breakaway, and you're thinking, okay, maybe that's the moment where we thought the game was won or lost. But at first, it's funny because I believe the moment where that the moment where Stolarz stopped Nick Suzuki on a one-timer when the Panthers were down on the penalty kill, where Forsling cleared it after, and it took a while. I thought it was like gonna be the Panthers' night there, but it's just when after that, when you saw that Ekblad was not coming out of the locker room in the second period, that's when alarms started to ring. Is that the Panthers were leading when that happened too? That's the worst part. So when I thought this game was won or lost, when the Panthers were up, that's a rarity on this show when it comes to post games, but it was something that kind of triggered me when seeing that, because knowing that you're already without Verhaeghe and Tkachuk there. So that's my moment.
Yeah, I'm with you. I could be really pessimistic and negative and annoying and say that my moment that I knew this game was lost was last night. I didn't necessarily think that they were going to come out with a good performance tonight. They've been so off their game. But my true answer to that, because I go into every game with at least a little bit of hope that they'll get a win.
Mm-hmm.
My true answer to that is Dmitry Kulikov's turnover. I thought even without Ekblad, they kill that really high pressure, untimely penalty. They kill that off, and I'm thinking, Barkov's got it going tonight. He owns Montreal usually. They got a big kill. Let's look for an insurance goal from the top line. And I thought that would be coming. And then the Kulikov turnover happens. Nick Suzuki buries it, and it's like you just handed them the game. It's the second out of a back-to-back. It's a level playing field now, and you're down your best defensive defenseman. It felt like from that point on, they immediately slipped back into bad habits. Immediately lost all energy, all momentum, all effort. It's the Kulikov turnover Suzuki goal that shifted the entire game on its head. And you pair that with Ekblad's injury, this is what you get. So that's my moment.
Yeah. Question. It's funny because when you look at how in the Toronto game how the pairs were kind of flipped, part of me kind of thought that Paul Maurice was kind of gonna go back to that because of how, I mean, even Nico Mikkola hasn't looked his best with losing his fair share of battles too. Thankfully his cap hit is very low for the Panthers. So if you decide to pivot off that even this offseason, you're able to. Not saying that the Panthers should trade him, but I mean, I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't a little bit of a shift in the pairs going into this one, especially in the bottom two pairs. I'm not surprised going into this one that Forsling and Ekblad stuck together. But I mean, obviously with the injury, that all goes out the window too when it comes to just managing the minutes. I haven't even looked up Montour's minutes, but he logged a lot of them tonight, especially. But also, towards the end of the game, when Cousins threw that hit on Jake Evans after the whistle, uh, yeah, the whole Nick Cousins and him being a rat and all. Yes, that is true as far as that. It's something that we can't really defend, but at the same time, when you think about the frustration boiling over and the boiling point for the Panthers and just everything's built up to that, I know it doesn't necessarily make a difference in the game, but that's something that the Panthers could definitely hopefully carry on with them going past tonight. And the Panthers don't practice on Wednesday, so wonder how much of a group conversation. I don't know if there's going to be a players only meeting. Neither. There's no reports of that, but I wonder what is going to come out of, especially how the frustrations boiled over with Montour getting a misconduct, Cousins getting one too, and at one point we talked about 5-on-3s. At one point 3 Panthers were in the box, but you couldn't start the third one, the time on the third one until one of the penalties expired. That's a rule in the NHL. In lacrosse, it's 3 guys in the box. You can't start the fourth one until the first of the 3 is out. So just unusual night.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on the Cousins thing because Nick Cousins does a lot of cheap stuff. He's had his moments this year, and he's definitely answered for some of them, paid the price physically for some of them, and it's a role that he accepts. Can't always defend his actions, but tonight I didn't think there was anything malicious with the late hit on Evans. There's no intent to injure there or anything. Correct. I think that was, and that's nothing in that was nothing personal between Cousins and Evans either. Just anyone who watches the sport, you kind of know when someone's just trying to send a message to their own guys. It's unfortunate that he had to do that to Jake Evans, a guy who's had some injury issues, guy who's really, really well liked around the league and Montreal, and you saw the reaction. But I think that's part of the reason why Cousins throws that hit on Evans. You know it's going to spark a reaction from everybody, and that's what you're trying to do. So he's just trying to get some energy going, get a little bit of fight, so show some fight in the team. I feel like the past few games, Panthers haven't done a whole lot of getting under people's skin, getting into the scraps and the post whistle scrums and that kind of stuff. And we don't want to see anyone get hurt in those type of situations, but that also tends to get the Panthers going. It drags them into the fight of the game. And really the only game recently that we've seen a lot of that was the game against Detroit. And that was a chippy game. And look how the Panthers took that game over in the third period, ended up winning it despite a huge penalty disparity that was topic for another day. But I thought it's good. It's a veteran play from Cousins. Just sparked something. You saw Montour fired up, going after Gallagher, who's kind of a well-known rat in his own right. And you saw what it led to at the end of the game. The game was out of reach anyway. Just do something to revive your team a little bit, get the pulse back going. I think Cousins did that, which is really his role on the team is get the guys going, drag them into the fight. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. So I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah. And who knows what positive that could bring in. Who knows? Maybe this is what the Panthers need. I'll leave this segment at this, and we'll park it here. Maybe they just need another Keith Tkachuk going on the radio and calling them out. Maybe that's what they need. So we'll or maybe something similar. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about what was said after the game and some prospect news for the Panthers as far as signings, ATOs, PTOs. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. And whether you're betting on big upsets or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet college hoops until they cut down the net. Once again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, April 3rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show, where the Florida Panthers lose 5-3 on the road against the Montreal Canadiens. And a few prospect and Panther news here for Florida is we spoke about Spencer Knight and his brilliant play lately with his shutout streak, but he has also been named goaltender of the month in the AHL. Also, Mike Benning has also been named defenseman of the month. And a familiar name, probably, if you're really, really deep into prospects and decamp for the Panthers, Cooper Black, who was a 6'8" goaltender from Dartmouth, was at development camp. He has officially signed an ELC that starts next year and signed a PTO with the Charlotte Checkers. He'll be reporting to Charlotte. Grayson Sachin, former second-round pick for the Panthers, signed an amateur tryout with them. And Kai Schwint has been assigned from the OHL Sarnia to the Checkers. And the one name that I'm still waiting on, but we're still going to have to wait a few weeks for because he still is playing in the NCAA tournament, is Jack Devine of the University of Denver. That is a signing that I am definitely waiting for. I'm sure you Jacob are as well for Jack Devine. So not going to happen until his season is over. But let's go right into what Paul Maurice said post game for this one after this. And it's crazy. It's crazy for me to process this quote when it comes to the slump. And this is what Paul Maurice said. He said, quote, "I'm not concerned. We understand where we're at and where we're at. I know why we're playing the way we are playing." Close quote. And it's crazy because this is the ups and downs of a season. We went through a whole bunch of criticism with Paul Maurice as far as what the show was last around November, December, right before the Panthers really flipped it on in January. So also credit is due. Paul Maurice has gotten the Panthers to the Stanley Cup final, but that quote for me is just, I don't know how to process it because yeah, as a coach, you're supposed to be, like I said, like I said earlier in the week. But it's really hard to process this because, again, when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's not when it comes to the parity of this league, it's the best. That's why it's the most exciting postseason in all of sports, at least in our opinions and a lot of the opinions of people who are listening. But when you're thinking about this, how we're getting towards the finish line of an 82 game season and something as far as hearing that, it's just really head scratching as far as that, because you see the record 2-7-1 in the last 10. Injuries are there, and even the few games that you had of a lineup at full strength, you still had a hard time protecting around the blue paint against the Islanders. You had to claw out a win against Detroit too, and the communication issues, even at full strength last night in Toronto, continued, and it's going to be hard to build chemistry without Verhaeghe in the next few weeks. Obviously him and Barkov fit. But also there's a good opportunity for Tarasenko to get more time with Barkov too. So there's that positive as far as that. So I don't know how to process this. I just don't, Jacob, hearing that.
Yeah, it's a strange quote. Paul Maurice is known to have a few of those, but it leaves you kind of wondering what's happening in the room. If there's a known issue, but it seems like it's not really being fixed. Is it something physically going on, or are there several guys sick? Is there? It's very open to assumptions and interpretations, and I don't know. It doesn't really shine much of a light on what the actual issue is, but
Yeah, no detail.
I guess it gives you a little bit of confidence that at least they're not sitting in there scratching their heads about why are we playing the way we're playing. I don't know. It's tough to take, but he did tip his hand a little bit shortly after that quote, talking about how they don't want to take any chances injury wise. So I get that. It is hard to play the Paul Maurice style for a full 82 games, and if you don't want to get injured, it's not exactly a style of play that you can go 100% foot on the gas all the time and get to the playoffs healthy. But the way I feel about it, I mean, we're losing bodies right now anyway. Just get to your best game, and that's where I'm at with that. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird to hear that, because it sounds like whatever's going on is a known issue in there. Guys are aware of it. Maurice is aware of it, but we have not seen any indication that anything is changing the way they're playing. They've been doing this. There hasn't been any turnaround in sight. We've seen a good 20 minutes here and there. It seems like we get a good period each game, and that's usually not enough. I don't know. They're capable. They're definitely capable. It's just they haven't been able to find it in a while. And whatever this known issue is, the resolution's needed fast. The playoffs are here, and this is not exactly the same situation like the Tampa Bay Lightning of the past few seasons, where we've seen them a couple times coast into the playoffs, lose a few games, and then flip a switch in the postseason. The Panthers also don't have $10 million plus worth of long-term injured reserve top line talent coming back for game one. This is the group we've got, and you got to find a way to flip the switch before you get to game one, because no one's going to give you time to readjust when the puck drops during the postseason, and it's concerning. But I will say we did hear a similar comment from Paul Maurice last season. I cannot remember which game it was, but there was a similar slump last season, and Paul Maurice said, I know why guys are playing the way they're playing. He said this last season. And it was sometime very, very shortly before they went on their postseason or late season run to get in. And I wish I could pinpoint the game he said that, but I do remember him saying something almost exactly the same last season. I have trust in the coach. It's just knowing the issue is only half of the solution. You've got to put it together on the ice, and I'm still waiting. So.
It's like the true sign of change is knowing that you have a problem to begin with. That's really what it comes down to. And thankfully for the Panthers, they recognize that. And to end it here, Paul Maurice did speak about even before the game. It's like talking about how they got to find a way to fire and not calling names and being careful with the team. Going back to what you said about injuries, but being careful with how you go about when it comes to when it comes to like name calling and all that. And yeah, it's a product of where you are when you secure your playoff spot too. And you could compare some parts of last year and compare some to this year too, but not entirely, because they know they're in. But it's just I think it just goes to a matter of just don't be comfortable when it comes to this. This is hopefully a good time to be comfortable. Know that you have that problem, and find your solution to fix this. And hopefully it's a quicker turnaround. The turnaround is quicker than we hope, and hopefully it comes soon on Thursday when the Panthers do face off against the Ottawa Senators, who they'll see twice in the next week. So gonna be a tough next few days right before the Panthers hit the ice. Lots of questions, and just wondering if the Panthers could just get their feet going again too. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much once again for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It was not a fun episode, But I do legitimately enjoy, personally, my time with you, regardless, talking to you, even if it's the Florida Panthers coming up on the losing end. So I do want to say once again, thank you for joining me from the bottom of my heart, my friend. So tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yep. Thank you for having me as usual. Highs and lows. It's always good to talk hockey with you. And yeah, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. Not the most fun follow right now, but feel free if you so choose. And I'll leave with this. Ottawa, they will drag you into the fight, whether you want to be in it or not. The Senators are a team that they play a physical brand of hockey. They're not going to make the playoffs, obviously, and they've got nothing to lose. So that's a team that's going to give you a good game regardless. And Panthers have put themselves in a position where games against Boston and Toronto down the stretch will be very, very meaningful. So let's hope we get at least a good hockey game against Ottawa. Let's get back to that, and we'll see where that lands them.
That's a good way to end it. See you next week, my friend, as we will be breaking down the Ottawa home game. So see you then.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.